Hello, good day, and welcome to another presentation from us at Budget Consultants Limited. Now, tonight's stream is a combination of TikTok and YouTube. So, if you're hearing any, well, if you're having any issue hearing what I'm stating, please let me know because I am working with two algorithms. Now, you'd have noticed that I've not done any stream of such of recent, is because I'm extremely busy. Kind of have some stuff that are coming out of the ground, so I'm a little bit off my feet as I should be. So, I am gonna go off tonight with some, the processes that I would go through when I'm actually doing an evaluation, especially for a customer or even a contractor. Things that I would actually do and how I'd approach it, and hopefully somebody that's in construction can learn something from it also. Now, if you're having an issue hearing me, let me know so that way I can adjust my microphone. So I am checking for people on YouTube as well as I'm checking for people on TikTok. If there's an issue with the microphone, I repeat again, let me know because there's no other way I can figure it out. Now, what I'm going to try and do is remove certain things that are going to confuse me from the setup that I would have presented before, and the things like the comments, I'm going to try and see if I can get the comments observed from a different angle. So let me try and turn on my phone. Now, for persons who are not clear as to what I'm doing, basically, you're going to see that budget comes up on the thing also, on the basis that I am trying to run something that basically I'm trying to run a stream that catches up on another stream. I'm gonna look and see if this works. Alright, so basically this is working the way I want it to, and etc. So this is what should I call it? So this is pretty much a 6 bedroom house that I am supposed to do some cross checking on. There's a initial quantity that was done for this property. I am asked to do some reevaluation because the quantity is old. It was not done by myself, so therefore, I still, I can't really vouch for it, because everybody do them thing different. So basically, the situation is like this, and I'm doing this video mostly for people who are either in construction or who want to do construction. This is the process that I recommend. Other people might recommend something else, and just referring to what I use and how we use to get good results. Um, yeah, well, majority of the time. So the case is this: a customer shows up, or a customer gets an architectural drawing done. They want to do construction, right? There are many times that one might want to go to things like rates, such as what you see on Excel now. And in some other cases, people will like go to contractors to see them get estimates and etc. But many of the time, I think those approaches are based on a lack of information and as to how most of these business arrangements are supposed to take place. Now, most customers are looking for the perfect contractor that has everything, well put together, that they can actually just take up things or, hire the person and go forward. Most persons who are in construction think they are actually that good, so a customer can engage them like that and they can get good results. But there's no consistency in anything in the technical world. Things many times can come together and they can fall apart based on rough ideas. So, going back to my setup, so drawing is done. Let us see if I have any kind of diagram that can help me. I'm gonna try and run this for 1 hour. Hopefully I get like a guess or two, especially on TikTok. If I don't, then I might be off earlier. So I usually use a draft and like as a chart as to how you move from one location to the other. So in this case, the drawing that you're seeing is lining up with what we would see as the approved design, right? That's what is being presented. Now, from the approved design, the customer wants to start executing work. And to execute work, many times they're either going to try and approach tradesmen or they're going to approach a contractor, which is following this path that you see here. The issue many times with this is that it skips over a lot of processes um, that are required in the process, and it takes out technical people or professionals out of the process. So then the customer is many times lining up themselves to have a very bad result on the basis that the info that they're going to get is not going to be based in any level of professional oversight. It's going to be just what you're thinking. Now, there are certain questions that a customer can ask that can be beneficial to them, that can help the process along. But it's always recommended to have a technical person who understands, not just a person that's showing up to say me have a degree, because that's a big misconception in a technical field. It's not just about boy, I may have a piece of paper. It's actually, I have a track record to actually do these kind of matters. So, approved design needs to go to contractor. Now, to go to contractor, there has to be a reference to cost. The issue that many times happen is that the average contractor in Jamaica is not trained to be an expert at presenting costs. So for that reason, costs that are presented many times by a contractor can many times not line up with reality, but the average customer might not pick up on it fast enough, and many times they will agree to go forward with business not knowing that what they have been presented is substandard information. So we always recommend that there's a professional that can look at the documentation that's going to be provided by a contractor or proposed contractors, I should say, to confirm that it suits the work that is coming ahead. Now, let us just say, fine, the contractor is going to be engaged. There are several questions that need to be asked from the customer standpoint, and there are several things that the contractor needs to know. One of the first thing is going to go around the design data, which is the information that is presented here. This is the common go-to for persons who want to engage in construction related activities. They are going to common time go to the total area of the building. In this case, it is saying 4,305 square feet. That's a total, and many times you are going to get the typical approach, which is multiplying the area by a square footage cost. Now, I personally am not a fan of the random square footage presentation, because there's a lot of questions that are left unanswered. And many times it can present a case that work is at a certain price or is going to be delivered at a certain price, and it can confuse the people to think that the project is, either too expensive or even too well, I'm cheap enough. I'm just put it like that. Now, what a person uses for their square footage value will vary. There are people that will use 15,000. There's people that will even use 14,000. There's people who use 20,000. There's no consistency or any regulation on that matter to prevent a person from saying a square footage cost. The issue with the square footage presentation, similar to what you're seeing I put on display here, is that after presenting this info, there's many times the need to answer questions that the customer might ask. So let us say the customer here that is going to be, say, $60 million. There are several questions that are going to come up. One is, how much money will be required to start the project? How much money is when going to carry to a particular point? How much money is required? In this case, it's almost like 2.5 floors. And I can show you back from the presentation. Yeah. So this is like a half a floor. This is a full floor and another floor on top of it. Now the customer might ask how much money does do the basement alone? How much money does to do the ground floor alone? The ground floor and the basement might exist also, and the person is asking how much to do the top floor. Let us say one presents the square footage cost, After that question is asked, many times the question is going to ask, how much money is going to do the wet work? How much money is going to do the finishes? Now, the issue I have in, pointing out the square footage approach being an issue is that many times one can't really present to a customer from a point of zero, well, we call it a lot of knowledge that this is what you do or this is what it takes to move from one point to another. So this is one ability that most contractors that we work with have. So a contractor might be a part of the system or part of the training, and they are going to be asked that question. They would use the calculator that's on the platform, and they could answer that question. So if the customer was to ask how much money to start up the site based on certain conditions, then they can say, all right, $1.3 million. So though it might be projected to be $60 million, instead of asking for a ridiculous amount of money, like maybe a man asks for 12 million or etc., which is very risky. At this point in time, I don't recommend that any customer pay out more than maybe 10% to start off any project. Unless there's going to be something like a performance bond that's going to be a part of the process. I don't recommend it based on what is going on in the sector and the fact that it is a case that I can, vouch for anybody to, undertake work with a major deposit in their hand. So, sorry for persons who are in construction. I'm not trying to be harsh, but yeah, that's what I think. So, the questions can be asked. How did the project start? One can give back the information to the customer. How much money go carry it up to cast in the foundation? One can give back the info. How much money is going to carry it up, like to block up the building, up to the point of, reaching almost at the building? One can give the info. So all of these patterns allow the user to be able to have the discussion and to market themselves better than just randomly saying, all right, it's $60 million. How much is your first deposit? $12 million. It seems excessive. It's not a good marketing technique. So I usually, like I said, go to that first. But all of that is from what I would refer to as a part of the process. I think I want to use, I think I want to use some other info. Sorry, I don't think I have those planned out. I don't have them planned out as yet. But let me look at something here. My people, I don't even know if I have any viewers as yet. Sorry. So, yeah, one would have to move from this projection first to be, and then move to the point of answering serious questions. What makes a lot of local contractors unable to undertake or get work of certain magnitude is that they cannot answer the hard questions. If you are going to play the game of construction, you have to be able to ask or get the hard questions answered. So this first thing here, the projection, is answering one question. And I think I need to put these in some kind of sequence. So I should call this maybe questions or references. I think maybe questions are the thing that I should put. So I'm going to just put a number for each of these and then go down. So the first question is going to be the projected cost. Sorry, so that's projection is the term that I'm using. That's where the process starts. That's where the two persons start the engagement, start to discuss what the possible cost of the project is. This by no means is conclusive because in most cases this does not really have a properly calculated document to verify costs. So one should not be overly um, excited with the first or the answer to the first question. The second question where it can come along is the things like the payment schedule. So the payment schedule is very important to the customer because it says how they will need to fund the project, and how they are going to put their money together basically. Now, if you don't have a payment schedule, then you start go downhill right away, because the issue that you're going to undertake if you're a professional is that you are not going to be able to account for what you're asking for, which is then marketing yourself badly. How much money is going to be needed first? How much money is going to be needed second, third, fourth, fifth? How much payments do you require? And then the customer has to evaluate how risky it is to pay out the amount of money that you're asking for. Now, if you can't cover the payment schedule game, though you might can answer the projection, you're off the table as an option. And customers, if you are not familiar with these kind of work, payment schedules are very common. It's nothing irregular. It's nothing bad to ask about. It's nothing to feel shy about asking for, because it is something that's required to ensure that the process is not going to be just up in the air, and payments are being requested without any basis. Now, one of the things we have to remember, is we are a lot of us are professionals, and being professionals, one has to be able to ask and get questions answered from a professional standpoint. So you need to know how the monies are going to be distributed. Now, one can say, which is reasonable, is that they can ask for the breakdown of costs. That is very, important. Breakdown of costs usually, or we can just say the cost report, just to make it simpler. Bill of quantity, detail estimate, whichever you prefer. So the cost report could come second, or not could, should come second, instead of putting in the payment schedule as second. So that is uh, issue on my part. So the cost report second. If you do not have a report on cost, then like me say, you are gone over the first hurdle, but possibly you are on your way to a point of failure, because you do not have a full report. What happens many times in the sector is that people give projections, and after they give projections, then they say the projection is the actual cost. And that's where it becomes very problematic, because when it is said that this is the actual cost, if the customer is able to articulate themselves properly and ask about like things like the report and how the financing of the project will be done, what the financial requirements are going to be, stuff like that. If the customer is able to articulate that, and the person who have provided the projection cannot respond to the questions that are coming, then basically it's going to be a big turn off. Now, like I said before, payment schedule will come after. After payment schedule, you have things like the contractual agreement, and this is contract. How's it go? Contractual. There you go. Contractual. I think agreement. I'm not. Let me bother where they go good. So yeah, the contractual agreement. So me just go say the contract document, because they don't know me not so bright. I mean, I don't have time to go look at that right now. So contract document comes next, and after the contract document, then you are gonna have the execution of the work. So all of these are very important steps that are required to allow for a process of limited problems. So I am supposed to have I'm supposed to have some, what call them? I was supposed to have some people coming through. Don't know what's going on in that regard. I don't know if it is that I am not doing something. Let me check on this. If you're not hearing me on the phone, you have to let me know because I don't know what person is hearing me now. I'm gonna try and send out a request again to persons. Well, my friend seems to not be here. Alright, yeah. So if I'm talking now people in construction, if you're not able to go over all these hurdles, many times you're gonna lose out in the construction game. Because it requires all these steps, minimum 5 steps, to come together for you to have a successful project. Um, the moment one jumps from projection to execution, usually it comes with issues. That is similar to the chart that I have used. I think I used before this, yeah, where it's just from the drawing to execution. So, how would I do this now? Let me find this again. Too much, too much things going on right here. As I said before, if you're not, shucks, don't think I have anybody here. Give me a second, please, because I don't think, hmm, I don't think I, yeah, yeah, sorry about that, yeah. Alright, so for this particular design now, I'm just going to go back to it. So, may have the square footage basically. I know that it is 4,000 as seen here. It is 4,305 square feet. Like I said, projection is going to say this. If if these kind of documents are being like I'm being asked for these, what I normally do is that I do my first cross check with this. So in doing my first cross check, I would see whether or not the projection that somebody is giving seems to be lining up with reality. So I can use a second document in this particular instance to say basement, well, the different levels I should say. So I'm going to put from the basement, the main floor, or one might say the ground floor, and then we are going to have the first floor. Now I'm going to take the data similar to how it's on the drawing because I know that's what many times people use. So looking back at it, on the basement it's saying 744 square feet. Gonna put that here. On the ground floor it's saying 1984 square feet. And on the first floor it's actually saying a total of what? 1577 square feet. So 1577. Now, though it's not commonplace to check or cross check these, I usually like to do a little cross checking of my own, so that's saying that the total is 4,305, similar to what was seen before. Now, I can use the same projection setup. I can just use rate in this scenario. Rate would be the cost per square feet that one might be using, and I'm going to use the the pro cost. I don't want to put the word projected because it's going to take up too much space. So it's a pro cost, and then we're going to have the calculated cost. So calculated cost is presented. Now I like to put a little bit of a fill region above my numbers because I want it to come off a certain way. So in the rough projected cost, I think I used 14,000 on the other side. Just gonna cross check it again. Yeah, $14,000 was what was presented there. I'll put the same 14 at this particular location. Now that same 14 is gonna go along these lines, and I am gonna calculate the area times the square footage cost, and I'm going to get a projection. So I'm going to do that for the other set of levels also. So this would be saying that the ground floor is about 10.4 million. It's saying that the first floor, or the main floor, sorry, should be 27.7 million, and it's saying the first floor is 22 million. I can say 22.1 if you are addict of picking off minor details, right? With all of these being presented, that's how you get the total being the $60 million that's shown here. Now, though that has been calculated and presented, it does not mean that the figure is correct. This, in any line of business you are doing, or any kind of procedure that you are go through, there are different steps that one has to take. So not because a number is seen, it means it makes sense or something is planned out properly. So what I do when I get these drawings, I try it with the professional calculator that we develop, and we'll put in conditions which are more than the square footage. So this is the same 744. I would specify material and labor on a property that's, quarter acre or less. That building is, on a similar property. I'm going to use medium grade. I think I should go in basic. I don't think I want to go basic. Let us just say it's basic. Alright, fine. So if that's basic, that's almost like on a main level kind of setup. It's not a sub level or it's not an upper level. That's the whole idea of it. So if I was to try that, put in sewage system, put in infrastructures, clean up property, put in storage shed, all of those kind of things, this is saying to me that the cost to do all of that work is going to be 14.2 million. Now, if you look back at the calculation, you'd have 10 million. So there's a point of error here, or a reason to need to do further investigation, because the fact say one number seems to be short by over $4 million. So sorry about that, people. So that's what starts to bring suspicions from early, when these things are not kind of lining up. Now, I'm automatically going to go with the calculator provided by the company, because of the fact that it has been tried and tested several times. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to pick up the other levels again based on the data that's here. The other square footage is 1984, 1984, whichever way you want to say it. I'm going to put that 1984 here. I am going to keep that at basic. I'm going to keep this as main level. Sewage system is already considered, and most of these facilities are already considered. So I don't need to consider them a second time. So I'm going to just put them as not applicable. I was putting them as no, but to ensure that the calculator works how I want it to, I'm going to make them all not applicable anymore, because they would have been done already on the basement floor. So not applicable is in, and then I can cross check the result. Now my result that I'm getting here is that on the main floor level it should be 30.7 million. So let me add that, and then I can see what I get. So it's 30.7. I'm just using 30.7 flat, not trying to go through all the fine details. So 30.7 is considered. The other thing that I'm going to consider now is going to be the upper floor. I'm going to change the square footage to what I'm seeing on the setup here, 1577, and I am going to add it right here, 1577, and then I can do another cross check again. This is saying that should come to about 21.5 million. So let me see what I'm getting, 21.5. So it's not as bad as the others based on what I am noticing here. So 21.5. Now what I can do is total these, just like I would have just totaled the other one before. Sorry. So actually sorry. So this should be a something. It's actually calculating what I don't want. So that's it. So that's totaling 66 million on a basic setup. The other BQ or the rough estimate would be saying 60 million. So there's a point of error of say $6 million even on a basic scale. If I was to use something a little bit higher like medium, I know there will still be a point of error with that. So what this is basically saying to me is that the square footage value is gonna be or is gonna cause a lot of problem to come between the customer and whoever is executing the work. Because using the square footage value at this level alone would be showing a cost difference of over $4 million on the first part of the work. The second part of the work, they would have a deficit of almost $2.3 million. And only in the third phase, it kind of look like it come back together. So it is a case where, sorry, it's a case where we need to do what we call more detailed evaluations in this particular regard. So let me see if I can find anything after that. Now, if it is that a person has a difference like this, that's the reason for the cost report, the bill of quantity, the detail estimate, whatever. The reason for it is because many times you're going to find out what one professional is saying is different from what the other professional is saying. So then it's really a show of class. Who can present the better documentation to say what the cost really is? Now, for many people in construction, they don't even know that part of the game. They just think about rate and train some rate and start some work. But in the professional theater, what comes up here is that the two conflicts need to be tested to validate who is more correct and who is incorrect. Now, if you're a part of the typical training, many times you're going to be told that you shouldn't, go along these lines, or etc. But what happened in business is that you might be a QS who's hired to represent the interest of the customer, and another QS can also be hired to represent the interest of the builder, contractor, or whoever. And in that case, then one will need to compare the information. Now, the costs that I used before, as I said, they were at a basic level, but I know there's a point of error. I know there is something that can, or is basically going to be a problem. So what I do in my case is that, I would do, cost reports, a different kind of bill of quantity, which is a little bit more detailed to validate my claim to cost. So in this particular case, the claim is that well, I use a medium here, but I'm just going to show you how I get most of my answers together. So my claim is basically that in this case it's about $70 million based on the grade finishes that I use. So what I am able to do in this is that I am able to answer a lot of questions. So in case it's a competition, then I can say to a customer what is required, what is not required. So in this case, this is saying labor first, the GF represent the ground floor, FF represent the first floor, um, SF refers to the second floor. This should be changed to BF, basement floor. You would have a GF here, and then you would have an FF here. So, what this kind of documentation allows me to do, if it's a competition type setup, is that I can then say to the customer, listen, my documentation, whether the customer or whoever I'm representing, my documentation is saying, to start this particular work, all I have to do is add the material sum with the labor sum, and I can arrive at what I think the total is. So in this case, I can say the preliminary cost for material and labor is $1.4 million. Now, if I was to go back to my cross-checking with the calculator, and I'm going to go back to the start off, that I use 744 as my reference. Sorry, I have an error there. So I'm going to put this as yes. I'm going to change back some of the parameters. And I'm going to put in private switch back, and I'm going to put in the non-applicable to yes. And most of these that were supposed to be here as no. So that is what I needed. I think this was supposed to be yes. So if I was to go back, this is saying $14 million. I think 14.2. If I was to look back at the document, this was the same 14.2. Now I could say, using the calculator, that I originally started off with material labor at 1.3 million dollars, basically 1.35 million to be specific. And then after doing the calculated checks, I'm at 1.425, which is less than $100,000 difference. So that allows me to validate that my calculation is on point and correct. And likewise, I could compare all of the others. If the person asks, how much go cast it up to the foundation, I can say, if I add that item with this item, I can definitively say to them, for the basement floor foundation, to include all materials up to casting, they're going to spend the equivalent of $1.5 million. That is like a schedule being presented to the customer at that point for them to understand that it is not just randomly put together. Now, if there's other details that need to be validated, in the case that, say, let us say the customer is one who desires to provide material, I can say what was specified at the preliminary level, what was specified at the point of casting the foundation. I'm going to use this as phase 1, where we have the 863 as a reference, 867, that is. Let me get that over here. So if the customer was to ask, how do you validate that the cost that you presented is reasonable over what the competition have? I can say, based on this is material take-up, which are presented here, from nails to spray paint to lard to steel to the stirrup, which are mostly treated, and steel to do, the full length steel that they're going to cut up, and a certain amount of concrete, I can validate that it's going to come to $867,000 worth of material. So that allows my customer to be in the advantageous position of being able to demonstrate to a person that they are not just making reference to a cost. So if my report is saying 70 million and you are saying $60 million, though, it might look cheaper on your side, and you'll think that it might make sense for the customer to go the cheaper option. The fact of the matter is that you might just be in a case that you can't prove. You cannot prove your statement, and proof is very important in the whole game of construction. If you cannot prove that you know what you're talking about, in many cases you are not going to be considered seriously. Somebody just let me see something. Um, Person who is alright. So one of the things that I need to add to these statement is this: in doing anything related to business, whether construction or otherwise, communication is very important. The question that you ask have to be clear. If the questions are not presented in a clear manner, what's going to happen is that it can lead to misunderstanding. So if you have just a random question, and I cannot understand the basis of the question, many times I'm not going to answer the question, because the reality of it is that I don't understand what you're talking about. So communication is very important, people, if you want to do anything in business, not just do construction. Because I personally I am of the opinion that many times when you have projects that go off the rail, it's because of bad communication practices. So for the person sending the question needs to be articulated properly for me to be able to answer the question. If it is not articulated, then I'm not going to speculate. One of the big thing, a part of our motto over here, is that we do not do the assumption kind of scenario. So you have to present where you present good. All right. Anyway, I'm saying usually quantity for quantity, then I can present to the customer what my report is saying to validate that this cost is incorrect. And that's a similar thing that's happening with this process here. There's another person that did a quantity, but their quantity is below what my projections were. And then I was basically called into action to do a full report to point out different spending patterns when it comes on to different elements that are going to be a part of the construction process. So in that particular regard, I am able to validate what is going to carry my cost to the 70 million, and therefore the competition will have to be able to articulate what caused them to validate or present a case that their cost is much cheaper. If they cannot do that, many times they're going to have a situation where, you know, basically the company will outclass the competition. And, at the end of the day, it's business, so one has to always present their class in the market to validate that people's money is properly spent with people who understand what it takes to make certain things reach to a level of success. Now, I think it's about 40 minutes I'm on this. Yep, I think I'm going to be heading now. So, just going to show you again um, the rough again that I, I would recommend that I go through. You have projection, you have the cost report, similar to what I say, the bill of quantities, you have the quantity survey report, whatever you want, expect. You have the schedule. Alright, so the breakdown that I will show in the summary part of is really to allow for the schedule to be built. The schedule will say what amount of money basically is going to come at different points. So, for instance, I can use this as my reference instead of using those that I was using a minute ago. So I can say for preliminary, that's labor, and I can say for preliminary, this is material. Likewise, the same thing can be said for phase 1. For phase 1, the cost is this, labor-wise, and material-wise, I can use the same summary setup and come in and say phase 1. So this kind of presentation of cost allows the customer to understand what kind of money they're going to spend at what interval. So I'm going to add a few more. So I'm going to put phase 2 as a reference, and I'm going to put phase, what is this, phase 3? I think this is phase 3. I think that is it, and then I'm going to put in phase 4 and 5. So this is 4, and the other one would be phase 5 right here. Separate and apart from that, we are going to have phase 6 to be presented, and I'm not going to put in external work. Now, what I just presented is the pattern, the schedule of spending that the customer should expect in terms of labor. In terms of material, we do a similar thing. Can take off, I think I had one already, that would have been 2. And then we can go to item 3, which is this. Then we would have item 4. I think 5 and 6, sorry. 5 would be there, and 6 would be the final one. Right? So this now allows a customer to understand what the patterns of spendings are going to be in this particular regard. Now, you might ask how there is 10.4 here versus what is the projection that I had. I can find it back. The projection was saying about 14. One of the things that happened with the basement, which is not going to be something that you look at, is that that's Between the basement and the main floor is where most of your major infrastructure are going to be put in. So it will not be priced as the building alone. But regardless, I'm not waste my time going there. Like I said, this is just basic schedule. Any customer can look at this, understand that, listen, this is the combined amount of money needed at this point, this is the combined amount of money needed at these different points. And they can then say, all right, we can finance. Now, if you are in construction and you can make it simple for the customer like that to understand what they are financing and when these financing amounts are required, then you're going to confuse the customer. And by extension, basically demotivate the action of the customer to want to, enter into construction. Now, if there's any other question you have, you can send it in. Not going to run the stream over an hour. So, persons in the chat, if you have a question, send it in from now because I'm a little bit over 45 minutes, which is heading to a point that I should be preparing myself to head out at this point. So, let me know if there are any other questions that I need to get answered or need to present. Let me know so I can put it in before I go. So I'm checking TikTok and I'm also gonna check YouTube. Oh, you see, like never feedback, I never know. So this again, one of my big issue like I said before. Big issue in my setup is this. When I do a stream, I don't even know what the people want to ask about. And, I'm not a preacher. I can't just continuously run a stream without being able to get questions presented that I can answer. So I'm not seeing any questions. Let me see something here and see whether or not. Don't understand what's going on here. So any questions you have, let me know so I can actually answer those questions and go back to my work. I'm not seeing any at this present moment, so maybe I am wasting my time, and people who know me know that my time is very precious. So I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So basically, we can hit the road now. Yeah, I think I can hit the road now. I don't see any question coming in, whether it's on TikTok or YouTube. So I think I'm going to be heading out, people. It's 48 minutes on my side, almost 50 minutes. So let me get running. I have 2 reports that I need to wrap up tonight by some I shall have them done. But for whatever I discuss in this stream, I'm gonna have it posted on YouTube. It's gonna be in the chat section. So if one wants to review it, they can go back and review it and see whether or not the projections are wrong. And if they want to compete, no problem. Because like I said, we have schedules here, and we also have detailed data, material data that's detailed, and we also have a lot of labor details that are, you know, that can be tracked to validate whether or not our things are working out properly. We are basically misleading people. But anyway, people, I don't know question to answer, and because I don't know question to answer, I am going to hit the road. Let me take a last look. Not, uh, not having any. But I go on do, Shane. Um, you want to come in and ask me a question because I can't read it. Can't really read the whole heap of text. I think some of that some participant I was promised a guest and the guest jump ship on me. Why is it that people in construction always quick to run away from minor challenges, minor questions, when at the end of the day this is what makes people consider people in construction to be either serious or good at what they do when they have the ability to answer questions. Why is it that people run from those? But like I said, Bridget, if you want to come in, um, yeah, politician, you watch election, oh yeah, I get paid from politician. A construction me attack, brother. Not time to deal with the politics. You understand? Well, let me not say that. I'm not, I personally am not into any kind of politics. So, maybe we just choose the wrong night, the man them gone where him, um, like the man them gone and them political meeting. No wonder the stream is so empty tonight. So tell me, Duchesne, you want to come in or not? Let me know so I can know if I should head out. Because I'm almost at the 1 hour mark. I mean, I really want to move on the screen no longer than that. Alright, so Lucian not be able to go through anything either. So anyway, I don't have any other person in construction popping up. I don't see any questions. So I'm going to be heading out. Was a pleasure being here again, as I said before. I'm not trying to go over an hour. And if I am going to go over an hour, I have to have an engagement where questions are asked and information can be exchanged. Don't want to preach for too long, and etc. So, um, if you have a difference of opinion in the cost that I represented, with the $70 million to do the building, which is 4,305 square feet, no problem. We can go through the details and I can validate my claim. I only warn that if you are going to take such a position, ensure that you have the information on your side as well, because we have a lot of data and research behind our information. But anyway, gonna be heading out, people. No question being asked. So TikTok people. See you again sometime. Now for the persons on YouTube, maybe nobody doing the funny, everybody got a politics, a political meaning. Um, hope you had a fun. Gonna be heading out for almost an hour. Here.